Office of Federal Programs and joined by many other colleagues from around the office and this presentation. If you could please make sure that you mute your microphones and video, that would be helpful. It keeps the flow of the presentation going well. And just a reminder that we are also recording this presentation. We'll be able to send you an email later with this presentation on it. I believe we sent out an email earlier today with the handouts for this. They're also available in the chat at the very beginning of it if you would like. There's two handouts, one of the PowerPoint slides and also of the can we do this, is this allowable activity. Within the PowerPoint, it is saved as a PDF, so if you open them on your computer, they have clickable hyperlinks in them, so they'll take you right to our document library, especially when it comes to some of the resources. On today's agenda, we're going to be talking about those critical questions to ask for all federal funds when considering activities. The purpose and intent of the consolidated grants. This is kind of that 30,000-foot view. We're not going into a lot of detail with them, but when we talk about the activities and can we do this, it's going to become very important. Several resources that we're going to be presenting throughout the different slides and some more at the end. Some of them have been updated very recently, so we want to make sure that we share those with you. And at the end, we'll also have questions. As we go through the presentation, if you want to put questions in the chat, we encourage that. We have some people that are going to be able to monitor that, and then we'll have an open session at the end. We are here for you guys, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. We want you to feel free to be able to answer those. So the critical questions process. There are three critical questions that are always part of this process: allocability, allowability, and the intent and purpose of each one of the grants. And we're going to dive into those a little bit more. So with allocability, this means what can be allocated. Something has to be charged to a specific cost objective. To be allocable, there must be the funds budgeted in the correct budget cell, has to have a substantially approved date, and it has to be an allowable activity. For allowability, this refers to the cost. Is it permissible to do? Each grant has its own permissible activities, but they must also be reasonable and necessary. That's going to come up several times. Be allocable, kind of referring back to the previous slide, meaning the intent and purpose of each grant. Each grant has its own intent and purpose. It also must be included in the district improvement plan and the funding application. When we talk about the intent and purpose, these are for all of the federal grants because they do have a specific intent and purpose. This includes Title I, Parts A, C, and D, Title IIA, Title III, Title IV-A, and Title V-B. Now, these are the most common ones that we use, but this still applies to ESSER, the CRF funds that have recently come out, some of the non-competitive grants that are in the consolidated. So even though we're going to be primarily talking about these, this does still fall underneath the federal grant. There is the 6 critical questions for using federal funds. This was recently updated. When you click on that hyperlink that's there on the right side in the presentation, it'll take you right to it. This is also included in the handouts that were given to you. The gray boxes are going to be the critical ones, and this is a simple flow chart that we use throughout any activity that you want to do with the programs. They are centered around, is this activity required by state, federal, or local law? Would we have to do this activity anyway if we did not have federal funds? Have we done this in the prior year using other state or local funds? Does it meet the priority need of the district or building? Is it evidence-based? Does it meet the intent and purpose of each of the grants? So those are our 6 main critical questions, and we're going to dive into those even deeper here. But there are, if you see on there's little yellow boxes next to each one of them that if you click on those in the actual document, it'll give you a kind of a pop-up box that will detail that even more. It's important to remember that there are still 3 parts to using these activities. You must complete a comprehensive needs assessment, which will then flow into the comprehensive plan and then flow into the funding. Now, we've been working on a shift in mindset over the last several years of funding the plan. So that's an important part as we work forward. That all starts with that comprehensive needs assessment. The first critical question, is this activity required by state, federal, or local law? So it has to be supplemental to the core program. All federal funds are based on this. The core program is required by the state curriculum standards. Some of the exceptions include interventions for 3rd grade reading guarantee or PBIS. If you have some questions about that part of it, please contact your consultant for questions. Also, it's important is when it comes to the local law, is this an LEA bargaining unit agreement? So those, if you are doing any of those, then you would not be able to use federal funds. The second critical question is, what would we do if we did not have the federal funds for this activity? Stakeholders have to be involved in the funding. This is within your community, outside agencies, etc., or other funds or local, state, federal grants. Your decisions need to be neutral for equity. Would we do this activity or program if we did not have federal funds? This is a good way to determine if the decision for the federal funds is neutral, known as the neutrality test. This is a measure of determining a district's or building supplement, not supplant. When it's supplemental, it can be paid with federal funds. If a district or building would be required to do a specific activity that would be due to the expectations of the community or past practices, then it may not be supplemental. There is some great guidance that's available in the document library for this. Critical question number 3 is, have we done this in the previous years using other funds? We have to remember that Title I is a building level grant, and this is where that neutrality comes in so important. If the district paid for this activity in the prior year, then it would be, then you would be supplanting in Titles 2, 3, 4, and 5. There is the allowability to have a year's break in between to break the supplement, not supplant with that. We got to remember that state and local funds, that's where the supplement, not supplant, comes to place. But if you use other federal funds, then you are not breaking the supplement, not supplant. So critical question number 4, does it meet the priority need of the district or building? Again, this goes back to the comprehensive needs assessment we talked about earlier. What data is used to determine the need? Is this in the needs assessment? Remember, we're doing building and district level needs assessments. And is it in the strategic or improvement plan that we were working on? Things need to be data driven and quantifiable. Building a comprehensive plan is important as we fund it with federal dollars. Is it evidence-based? The activity must be evidence-based if it is an intervention or improvement strategy for Titles 1, 3, and 4, and with the safe and healthy student activities, or Title 2, professional development and class size reduction. 4 tiers of evidence under ESSA. In the state of Ohio, we're very lucky to have 4 levels. Level 1 being strong evidence, Level 2 being moderate evidence, Level 3 being promising evidence, And level 4, where the district has the ability to demonstrate the rationale. And this is all within a logic model or evaluation plan. 2 recommendations that I have, if you want to find out those levels of evidence, is go to the What Works Clearinghouse or the Ohio Evidence-Based Clearinghouse. These are 2 great resources for you as we move forward. And the last critical question, what need is the activity targeted to, and who is the activity targeted towards? Alignment to the district or building priority needs. We have to remember that comprehensive needs assessment flows into the comprehensive plan, and the application funds the plan. We look at our stakeholders in each activity and target towards the students, the parents, the teachers, the leadership, classified, etc., or the district-wide, is depending on the grant. We have to look at the intent and purposes of each one of the grants. And there's some great resources out there that we can use. If you had answered yes to that last question, you can be confident that the activity program that you want to use is allocable and allowable under federal guidelines and may not and may meet the needs of the purpose of the federal program. If you are ever in question, remember, you can always contact the Office of Federal Programs, and we can walk you through these steps to see if it is an allowable activity. Remember, Title I provides all children significantly opportunity to receive a fair, equitable, and high-quality education. It's designed to close educational achievement gaps. And one of the examples is supplemental instruction or supports above what the district would need if the district did not receive Title I funds. There's a great resource embedded in the document library. It's the Title I spending guide. You can either click here on this slide, or you can go to the document library to help with many ideas that are embedded. This is one of those documents that I suggest that new coordinators download and keep in actually a hard copy format, because you can write notes on it. You can, just have it in a 3-ring binder, for quick reference. There's many ideas embedded in there, along with how that intent and purpose aligns. Title II, the purpose of this grant is to increase student achievement and improve the quality and effectiveness of teachers, principals, and other school leaders. And again, there's a great resource for anybody out there, is the Title II spending guide. It is also located in the document library, and it gives several ideas. There's 17 allowable activities within Title II. Everything from professional development to stipends to class size reduction. And these spending guides detail the allowable activities for your use. Title III, English learners and immigrant students. These assist teachers, principals, and other school leaders with effective instructional strategies for EL and immigrant students. It does also promote parental participation for language instruction. And probably one of the best resources that I can suggest to you is go to the ODE website. There is a Title III webpage. It has many ideas on there and what the law says when regards to Title III. Many additional resources are available at the bottom of that page. Title IV, Part A is improving student achievement by increasing capacity of students in districts to 1, provide all students access to a well-rounded education, improve school conditions of student learning, and improve the use of technology in order to improve the academic achievement and digital literacy of students. There are 3 different sections. I have to be honest, this is one of my favorite grants that's out there because it has so many allowable activities, especially in the educational culture that we're going through right now. And just like some of the others, there's a great Title IV spending guide that was created for your use. It is, again, it's located in the document library. It's located on the website. So again, researching and really looking at what the true definitions of all those allowable activities. I think at one point, I don't quote me on this on the actual number, but I think there's like 56 different allowable activities within those three areas when it, to use federal dollars for. You do need to make sure that you are following the rules if you get more than $30,000 for Title IV, but your educational consultant will be able to help you work with that. Title V. The purpose of this grant is to address the unique needs of rural school districts that frequently lack the personnel or resources, and they receive a formula grant allocations in the amounts that are too small for effectively meeting the intent and purpose. I usually refer to Title V as the booster shot because it takes on the characteristics of Titles 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it just kind of gives you that boost, put you over the top and give you a little bit of extra federal funds. The application allows you to check which grant you want it to follow, and then you fill in the appropriate budget cells with that. Not all districts get Title V because it is a rural grant, but it is available to many districts in the state of Ohio. Each one of these hyperlinks that are on this page, I would suggest that you actually print a hard copy. The ESEA resource and guide update, this is fairly new. This is updated last month. It's also available on our website. It has many hyperlinks embedded into it, especially when it comes to the non-public, all the different grants that we use within federal programs, links to the U.S. Department of Education. This would also be a good one to keep on your computer and print as a hard copy. There is some grants management links in there also that would help you. There's the ODE guidance that I referred to last year with supplement, not supplant. I would suggest printing that one off also, especially when it comes to methodology. There's that spending guide for Title I, II, and IV. And then here, the 6 critical questions, which we updated last month. It was one of those also that was in the handouts that were given out prior to this presentation. All right, pop quiz time. Here's some common questions that we see. Can I buy incentives with title funds? I'll let you think about that for a second. If you want to type in the chat, yes or no. I'll give you about 20, 25 seconds to, can I buy incentives with title funds? I did not specify an actual title because it may differ. So the answer is yes, but it must be reasonable and necessary. Incentives could be food, it could be little trinkets, it could be gas cards for the homeless. But I want to put a caveat: if you're going to use gas cards or gift cards, they must be in small increments, and the treasurer must sign for it, and there has to be the accountability on that. Some districts shy away from that because of that, because for auditing purposes, if you're going to give a gift card out, it must be accounted for. Small trinkets, we're okay with, things from Oriental Trading, not that I'm plugging them or anything, but, just little things along that line. When it comes to food, catering of Olive Garden is not reasonable and necessary. We're talking little things like punch and cookies, maybe pushing it as far as, getting hot dogs or even pizza on your parent nights, or some type of incentives along that as part of your parent engagement. But again, it's going to come back. It must be reasonable and necessary. All right, next question. What fund can I use to support social and emotional learning, SEL, in the building or district? A, Title I and II, B, Title I and IV, C, only Title IV, or D, Title I, II, and IV. Give you a couple seconds to think about that. You have to think about the allowable uses within each one of those grants. And the answer is you can use, to help support social and emotional learning, it falls under Titles I, II, and IV. Now, it looks a little bit different under each. Support could be defined as different things. It could be professional development. It could be providing supplies. PBI is sort of part of social emotional learning. In Title IV, there's the whole child and under school safety and wellness of students. So each one of those grants would have the ability to help support social emotional learning. Next question. Can I use Title I funds to pay for special education services? Believe it or not, we get this question a lot. Give you a hint. Think about supplemental to core instruction and 2, federal law. So the answer is no. IEPs are federal law and required to implement. Federal funds must be supplemental to that core instruction. And so this would not be allowable to use for special education services. Now, you can use them as long as they're not IEPs. So if you have a classroom that you have a educational aid in that is used for instructional purposes for that classroom, and they are not addressing any IEPs because those are federal law, then I would contact your consultant, make sure you're meeting all the rules with that. But there are some caveats with that. And our last question, can you use the entire allocation of Title IV to purchase Chromebooks? This is a very common question the last couple of years. The answer is yes, but I want to put a caveat on there because there is a 15% capacity on all infrastructure and devices. A Chromebook is considered a device. Now, if you remember at the end of last year, there were some flexibilities or waivers with Title IV where they waived that 15% for devices and infrastructure. So you can't use the entire allocation for it because of that 15%. But if there are waivers or flexibilities, you might be able to, if you have an allocation under $30,000. Remember, Title IV has a lot of nuances embedded into it, so we want to make sure that you're following those rules also. So contact your consultant. We will be more than happy to help you. All right, now it's questions for us. Amy, do we have any questions in the chat that we need to make sure that we hit?
I think I'm keeping up with most of them. I did put a little extra there about the gift cards.
Okay.
The recipient of the gift cards needs to sign for them, and a good way to to keep track of these is just to create a spreadsheet. Like, let's say you're doing a literacy night and you are doing some incentives for that, you know, maybe little raffles or whatever to incentivize attendance. So create a spreadsheet, who the vendor of the gift card is, you know, Subway or, you know, whatever gas station that you might be using, the amount of the gift card. So, you know, $10 or whatever. The reason and purpose, which would be, you know, for your literacy night incentive, and what funds you're using to purchase a gift card. And then what's important is that the recipient signs that spreadsheet that they actually did receive that gift card. And then we're in the middle of answering a question about carryover at this point, and Diane and I are both chiming in on that. So I think that's all I've seen so far.
Well, if anybody else has any questions, type them in the chat, or if you unmute, you know, we'll be more than happy to help you out on anything.
We did both post a link and the documents that you had shared earlier. Some people weren't able to access them, so I think they should have those documents available to them now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Diane?
Scott, I think we want to go over the availability of the funds. I think that has to do a lot with our carryover question that we had. The only fund that has a carryover limit is the Title I with the 15%, which was waived for FY20. However, they all have a limit for availability, which means 27 months. So the year in which you received the grant would be your first 12 months. If you have any carryover of those funds, that would be the next year, and you would actually have until September or that following fall then to allocate those funds out. So that's your full 27th month. So you don't want to just kind of not budget your carryover when it comes into your grant the following year. You want to try to spend it so that you don't end up in a situation where you're losing funds. Then in the fall that we have to go in and reduce your amount because you have funds that are expiring.
And Diane,
we do a first in, first out. So we always apply whatever you expend on your funds to whatever funds are the oldest within your application.
And we, as consultants, will normally not send it to final approval if they haven't budgeted those carryover amounts. So would that be accurate?
Yeah, we usually, if we do, we tell them that we remind them that they have carryover, that they need to budget. But yes, typically, sometimes the carryover will come in between the process of it getting to final approval. So it just depends on, when they submitted it and then when we got through our processes at our end. But yes, we do like to remind you to budget your carryover.
And this year, I think we saw an increase in carryover just due to COVID across the state. So, if you need ideas, contact your consultant and, see what we can do to help you out on that. I know I've had a couple districts that have had, some high carryover amounts. We want to make sure that we spend that so you don't lose it.
Mm-hmm. Is there any questions about what we mean about what's reasonable and necessary? I think that's the one piece that for all of us, it's kind of hard to say, well, how do you gauge whether it's reasonable or necessary? And I will say that one thing that ability and allowability, those are easier to judge, but the reasonable and necessary it usually comes back to, will this benefit the program that's being funded? Is it to the benefit of the program itself, and will it extend its influence or its impact on what you're trying to achieve? Would be one thing that you would want to ask yourself or to look at. And of course, then the reasonable part would be that, the amount of money for what you're going to, for the benefit of this, is it worth the amount that it's going to cost? Or would it be better to use those funds towards a different activity? And those typically come down to you as a district being able to express that. How is it reasonable and necessary? Because you know your situation better than we do. And so, that's the question that we're going to ask you. If we see a cost that we may question if it was reasonable, necessary, we're going to ask the district then, why was this cost necessary for this program? Why did you, and why did you feel as if this amount was reasonable? So if you ever have a question, that's what your federal programs consultants are here for, to kind of, talk through this, because sometimes they can probe you a little bit more in your questioning of it than you can. You have to have somebody you can bounce things off of, and often you can't find that in the district sometimes. So you do have your federal programs consultant, and many of them have been in districts. So they understand some of the things that are going on in districts that can help you with that.
I know, Diane, when it comes to like Title II, it's reasonable and necessary. Some things, some situations that I've seen, one of the big ones is I want to send my entire admin staff to, a conference, for professional development, which is one of the allowable activities, but it does come into the reasonable and necessary. Is there something that's closer? I had one where the district wanted to send the admin staff to, California. So now you got airline tickets and conference and hotel. Is there the question I'm going to ask is there something closer? And then can you send one, maybe two people to go to the conference and bring the information back to the rest? So that's where we get into the reasonable and necessary questions, especially with Title II, professional development within 1 and 4 and 3. So, those are some of those scenarios that would be important.
Yeah, the travel, and there are some guidance that we do have on travel that would be helpful, probably, if you have that come up, especially when you're working with your district personnel, and you're really trying to educate them on, the travel rules and what's reasonable and necessary. Having those documents sometimes can help you in that conversation in your district. So I think we had a couple of other questions. The 15% rule in Title 4A for technology infrastructure. How is that? What do we mean by infrastructure? And I think what when you think of infrastructure, you think about a building and its infrastructure. You're going to think about the walls and the beams and and the foundation piece of it. And that's kind of what we mean with technology infrastructure then. That's going to be your wiring, your network system itself, those things that are across district that is going to support technology within the classroom. If it's technology that's within specific classroom or for a specific program, it's typically program related than expense or cost. But if it's something that's across the district that's going to address your technology needs across the district, then you're looking at something that is more infrastructure.
I know the Title IV spending guide has some great information on that in it. and it talks a little bit more in depth, especially when it comes to devices. You know, I have a little bit of a technology background, and when I think of infrastructure, I'm thinking of the backroom closet with all the servers and switches and everything embedded into it, you know, and which is part of it, which is part of that 15%. But, you know, but it is that wiring and everything. So that's important to remember as you move forward.
Yeah, definitely. The other issue is address books updates. It really depends on where that, some people said we've gone in and we've done updates in the CCIP, but yet somebody is still showing up in their address book. And it really depends on what role they're showing up as in the address book. Sometimes some of the roles come through your OEDS account for the district. And if they still have access to the CCIP, the planning tool, or the funding application, or the decision framework, any of those things that they're still listed and attached to your district, that may pull them in. Another place is in the funding applications itself, there's a contact, and it's not just for the consolidated application, but if you go to your different applications, on each of those applications, there's a different contact that you would have to update. So it could be pulling them from one of those contacts that you have. And then another place to look for is on the address book. There are some that are blue underlined, such as the planning tool. You click on that planning tool, and there's a contact listed in there that may need to be updated. So there's several different places you have to look. And certainly call your federal programs coordinator to see if they can help you identify where it's being pulled from, so that perhaps you can get it then out of your address book. You do have to go in revision if you need to change the contact in within the consolidated applications or any of the other applications. So you can't do that change if it's not in revision.
All right, what other questions do we have here?
The Title IV 15% would also apply to your non-publics, but it's included in that overall amount. I think that was a question, that would it be 15% for the public and then 15% of the non-public, but the overall grant amount itself would be 15%. So.
Let's see, the next question is, when will notifications go out about on-site audits or desk reviews or self-surveys? Diane, you want to take this one?
Go ahead.
So we have sent out any notices for desks or on-sites. They went out approximately at the beginning of November. You should be notified by then. So that means that has the remaining districts in the state of Ohio with a self-survey. Those notifications should be shortly going out here. I know some people are waiting to see the complaint system open up before you can, send that. So, but if you have an on-site or a desk review, and that includes modified, you should have been notified by now, so you can start preparing.
And then think too that it depends on your role in the district whether you would have received that notification. I think that goes to your superintendent and your treasurer, and then your funding application contact, or whoever your consultant works with the most in your district. So, it may be that you had not received it, and you might want to check with your superintendent or treasurer to see if they had received an email. about that, or just check with your consultant and they can let you know.
It looks like we got another question. From Jared, is there any avenue that can be taken that allows title funds to be used to pay title teachers to educate remote learners? This would be for daily instruction, not intervention. I'm kind of confused by that question a little bit because title teachers should be supplemental, and then I see daily instruction, which tells me core a little bit. So we are in a different world right now. So you can use your title teachers to do remote learning, but not for daily instruction for your core subject areas, which is your English language arts, math, reading, or math, science, and social studies. But the only way you could use for daily instructions if you're using class size reduction for that remote learning, and that's for titles 1 and 2 with that. So I think I answered your question, Jared. But you can use, if you're title teachers, because they're used for that intervention and title and supplemental, they can be used to educate remote learners, especially in today's educational culture with COVID going on.
Especially to support those learners who are struggling through this remote learning. But when Scott mentions class size reduction, you can pay for teachers with Title I if you are meeting the state's requirements for teacher-student ratio in the district prior to hiring someone with Title I funds. So you need to be able to demonstrate that with your general fund, your core instructional teachers, you have a K-4 and a K-12 1:25 teacher-student ratio, so that it demonstrates that these teachers are above and beyond what the district is required to provide then by law. This is something you need to check every year so that you can assure that, because typically what happens is we'll hire them, and at the time that we hire them to be a supplemental teacher, we're okay on our numbers. But then a couple of years later, it's just been, we just keep doing what we've been doing. And suddenly they're not supplemental any longer. So you wouldn't be able to keep them in Title I. You would have to move them underneath your state and federal funds, state and local funds, to pay for that teacher's salary, because you would be required to have that teacher by law based on your enrollment numbers. So,
and I'll take it one step further, Diane. Also, 1, is it in your needs assessment and plan?
Yeah.
And 2, is it reasonable and necessary that you have that? So that kind of goes into what you were talking about earlier also. So, again, it goes to that 6 critical questions that we talked about earlier. Do you have to do this, in order to use those funds?
And it would appear in today's environment that, yes, with the remote learning, it's difficult for your classroom teachers to be doing both. I know my daughter teaches in a district and she has been doing both, and she's been exhausted most nights because she's running 2 classrooms at one time. But just think about also, you just want to make sure that each year, as you're making decisions for how you're going to utilize your funds, that you really are evaluating what you're doing and how you're using them. You're not just doing what we've always done. Well, this is what we did last year, so this is what we're going to do again, because it may not fit any longer with what you're doing. And so, and then again, of course, too, it would be something that you would have to, there has to be evidence-based. So if you're going to do that, you want to, how are we going to evaluate if this is effective? Is it doing what it should be doing? Are these students being successful because we've hired this additional teacher to support their remote learning? And that's why typically the supplemental teacher, you can often find, is more effective than just, hiring your core teacher, and then there's not that support for those students who are struggling.
And we haven't even touched on ESSER too much yet about parts of this, because you could use ESSER for,
yes, definitely.
For also. So, you know, we've been concentrating on 1, 2, 3, and 4 or 5. You know, you get into some of the CRF and the ESSER funds, you know, and how you can address, especially during these remote learning times.
So we have a question on evidence-based strategies and ongoing. And we do have the clearinghouse, and there are resources on ODE's webpage. And I think it's important for you to know that not everything that you do has to be evidence-based. In Title I, it requires that whatever improvement or intervention strategy that you're utilizing, it's evidence-based. And if it's not in the clearinghouse, that means that you're evaluating its effectiveness to see if it's working and achieving what you're hoping it's going to achieve. For Title II is probably the one that has the strictest evidence base, because your PD and your class size reduction is required to be evidence based in Title II. So most of your activities, you have to have evidence based with Title II. In Title III, it's just your PD activities again. For your teachers, and that's your classroom teachers who have those students in their classroom, as well as your language EL teachers. And then for Title IV, it's their safe and healthy student activities that need to be evidence-based. So we don't expect when we come in that everything you're doing is going to have that evidence-based label or model, but we do expect to see that in each of your programs you are using some evidence-based activities. And I think our new spreadsheet this year will be more helpful in that regards. As far as training, I know Amy had some training scheduled for last year's spring, and we hope to have training again once we're able to have you know, our conferences and again, like we've been able to in the past. So.
I don't see any more questions here. So keep typing in the chat or unmute. That we are here for you guys. We just started putting together our next series as we move forward for January, February for the new coordinators. We'll be solidifying that. So watch your email and watch stars for the new coordinators training. If anybody has any ideas, if you want to put in the chat of something that would be helpful for the new coordinators, feel free. We want your feedback. We might be able to put together a month for you where we can help, or make it part of, you know, the regular federal programs update. So if you have any ideas that you would like to see, please go ahead and type it in the chat, and we'll see if we can incorporate it in somewhere.
One thing that will be coming out is the training for compliance, because we're going to have a new compliance system. We do have training that we'll be doing for in January 27th and February the 3rd, and that was just finalized this morning. So you are the first ones to hear that, and they will be sending out information on it. And it'll be in the afternoons from 1 to 3. So.
Well, I'm just gonna hang out here if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, thank you. Happy holidays, everybody. As we keep going here. Yeah, I'll hang out here for a little bit. I think few of us will hang out. So if you have any questions or want to unmute, go ahead and ask away. So otherwise, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next month. Have a great day,
Next
everybody.
year.
Next year too, yes. 21. I'll take it.
Hey, Scott, it's Jared. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jared. How you doing?
Great. I think I understood your question, or the answer to my question.
Okay.
I think Diane hit it on the head. We have a couple buildings, title buildings, where teachers are doing both, and we're trying to prevent that burnout.
Sure.
And I don't know if I worded my question correctly, but just wondering if there was any way, and you had mentioned ESSER funds at the end, so I need to look into that. But if there's any way that you could use the title money to pay a teacher, let's say, who's currently doing title intervention, and sort of change their role to providing actual instruction, being the person providing instruction for these students who are learning remotely.
So Jared, I think because you would not be able to use title funds because you're providing that core instruction,
Right.
You can split it out. So if they're providing like half their day, they're going to be doing title funds, and the other half they're going to be doing core
General fund.
Yeah, they would have to come out of general fund, right?
Okay, that's what I thought. I just didn't know if there was, given the circumstances we're in, because we can't. It's getting tough to even find people to do title. So that money that was budgeted for title,
Yeah.
Is it now? What have you checked to see what your teacher-student ratio is, Jared?
we do not exceed 25. I'm almost certain of that. They
So
would have, when
it's
you're
a
saying
possibility.
25,
Who's your
that would be a
consultant?
teacher who has in class and remote learners combined.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
would
could
have
check
to
that,
do
but I'd be
your
surprised.
total enrollment for each of the grade levels and your total number of your regular classroom teachers. So you wouldn't count your special ed or art and music or any of those extra teachers, only those who are doing core instruction, to see if you're meeting your 1 to 25.
And for Title I, you have to be school-wide.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're school-wide in our buildings. I'm just trying to think creatively how we can help our teachers. We're doing that Wednesday off, and it's been very beneficial for the upper grades because the students are a little bit more independent with learning. But for our K to 3, it's still a great challenge for us.
My
Jared,
daughter's
we
a
can
second
talk
grade
later, but I have a
teacher.
great spreadsheet that we can use that would help you. You input the numbers into, and it'll tell you whether you qualify or not when it comes to the 1 to 25 ratios. But and it has some directions on it, so I can share that with you. That would give you an idea, and we can talk about some of the class size reduction is one of those things that we need to make sure is evidence based, and I have some evidence for you on that. So we can talk.
Yeah,
talk
it's in the
later.
doc library too,
Yes.
Jared. Underneath the consolidated applications in Title 2A. There's a folder for class size reduction.
Okay. And Scott, that's why I left you a message this morning. You probably didn't get it yet. I didn't realize you were presenting today, but that's why I had left you a message on this specific topic.
We will touch base and we'll figure this out together.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. Have a great holiday.
You too, Jared.
You too.
Hi, Scott. It's Maggie Kowach. How are you?
Hi, Maggie. How are you?
Oh, well, my husband just had total hip replacement surgery Tuesday, and I brought him home yesterday. So I'm trying to get through these like 2 days and finishing up everything at school so I can focus on him. But I had a question about, I got an email that we're supposed to review our FLICS report, and I talked to our EMIS coordinator, and she said that we have like one red flag. So I was on the other thing trying to ask James Como, but he had to leave for a meeting. Am I supposed to be doing something to change that child that's a red flag in the EMIS system? Or I wasn't quite sure, what to do to review this data. It says it has to be done by tomorrow. So I was just kind of not real sure about this since I'm new and have no idea what I'm supposed to be looking at.
Diane, or is Phil on here?
Yeah, I'm on here. You just want to review that information with the community school to make sure. So we use district of residence from the year prior. So that'd be October 1 of last school year. And then it is enrollment of this year. So your job is just to verify that with the community school to make sure that information's accurate. And if it's not accurate, you could put a flag on that student if you needed to. But today is the last day that the districts can challenge those students. So that's what the date's for. But it's just basically for your review. This is for new and expanded community schools. We will do this process again in the spring for all community schools.
So this is where we decide how much we're going to, pull from your federal funds to fund the students from your district who are in the community schools. So you want to make sure that they're actually enrolled.
Okay.
Did you flag them? Did your EMIS coordinator flag them, or did the system flag it?
I think the system flagged them because when she sent me back the email, she said that, she had never had anything to, kind of do with this. She had just said that, we get the FLICS report and EMIS. EMIS coordinators aren't really told anything about it. She says she didn't do anything within the system. She's highlighted the one fatal error in red, and then there are 3 critical errors in yellow. She's like, besides not being eligible for allocation, I don't know why they are coded as fatal and or critical. So
I would check their enrollment and see where they're enrolled. If have they come back to your school, or are they enrolled in another school, another public district? Are they still at that charter school that they were at last year? Because chances are, especially with everything going on.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. I think the like, if I looked at this correctly, I think this child, she's not in my building, but I think she was here last year and started this year in an alternative education academy, which I've never even heard of.
Right, so it's going to pull from last year's district of residence. So we always pull from the previous year. So that would make sense why it's on you.
Yeah, she was here with us last year in our district.
So you would need to update then her enrollment information for that report. And your EMIS coordinator should know how to do that.
Okay. But if that's what they're saying, like if this report says that that's where she's at this year.
It's wrong. That's why she's probably flagged, because somebody else that's picked up that she's being reported. It's being reported as a change this year. The system has flagged it.
Okay, so
you can.
Anyone that's yellow or red, I just need to, talk to their principals and see if they know for sure that those kids are in that community school.
Right, where they're at.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can imagine it's really difficult this year with all the, hybrid learning and remote learning that's going on. So.
Okay.
Fun.
Yeah, exactly. All right, perfect. All right, well, thanks for your help. I will at least get on that and contact the other.
If you still have questions, your A site should be able to help you with that.
Okay.
For your EMIS stuff. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Kind of above. I know a little bit about it because I was in a district and had to work with that report, but I always called my A site.
And the A site would be like the TC, like our Trumbull County
IT center that, supports your network and everything.
Okay.
Mine was Skoka. I don't even think they're any longer here. So
like we have Dazzle, like right, Neoman, right?
Excuse me?
We have Neoman.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for the help. Yeah, because like I said, our EMIS coordinator had no idea.
She knew too?
She said that EMIS coordinators were never trained. She said, she goes, she's like, I've never really done anything. She goes, we get the report. However, as EMIS coordinators, we aren't really told anything about it. She's like, and I don't do anything with the FLICS system.
Usually the treasurers are the ones who will work on that fix, but typically I know my treasurer turned it over to the EMIS person to get it fixed.
Okay.
Diane, we do have a question in here from Ann, and I don't know if Ann is still on the call here. She wanted to know where in the document library you can find the Title I guide. If you open up the document library and you open up ESSA, which is the first one, and you hit the plus sign, and then you hit the plus sign for ODE guidance, you'll see the Title I spending guide right there.
Yeah. All right.
Anybody else
Well,
have any
I
questions?
have another meeting I have to go to.
All right, Diane, thank you so
Scott,
much.
thanks. You've done a great job today.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for calling in.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Happy holidays.